Welcome, and thank you for joining us for another edition of Live by Heart Today. Please subscribe to be notified for future episodes. Our show begins now. Streaming from Retro Earth Studio and brought to you by We Are Historically, Conscious Brand Apparel. It's time for the next episode of Live by Heart
Today
with your hosts, Dawn Spiegelberg and Wendy R. Wolf.
Hello and welcome to the Live by Heart Today show number 30. That's really exciting. This is a show designed to help you navigate change, uncertainty, and the new world we found ourselves living in. We'll talk a little bit about science, a little bit about how our body works, a little bit about intuition, and we'll talk a lot about transformation. I'm Dawn Spiegelberg, posture therapist and coherence coach. We're focusing on being proactive this quarter. Today's theme is conscious choosing. And with me for today's Heart to Heart is my beautiful co-host, Wendy R. Wolf, Professional Transformation Facilitator.
Thanks, Dawn. This is a wonderful opportunity for us to talk and hopefully start more conversations about how we can make conscious choices in this time that's a little bit challenging for many of us. So last time, our conversation, which was called responding versus reacting, we spoke about rest and how important it is to bring that from the inside and outside, our parasympathetic, and the calm that we can find within, to start there. And then we talked about investigation and how important it is to have clarity and be opening more and more to the many layers of distraction and habitual seeing that we have, so that we can really be with what really find what's going on. And then the third step that we talked about is, can we be with that? So we find out what's really going on. Can we not resist and judge it? Can we not run from it so it chases us? Can we just be with it so that we can go on and choose? So I'm pretty excited about today. Is there anything you want to add about that? I know I just went into the 1, 2, 3.
It's beautiful. You mentioned layers of distraction, and it's layers seems like a really light word. You know, I'm thinking of the Earth's crust layers. You know, these are hugely piled on beliefs and paradigms and stuff to really wade through. I used an example recently. There were some things I've been changing. I'll use an example like confidence. I was saying, oh well, my confidence felt like it was a garden, and all I had to do was add a little more water and make sure the sun was shining, and everything was good. And then other parts of some personal development I've been pursuing, it was as if the ground had never been touched. You know, I was digging and I was weeding, and it was hard,
Yes.
and I didn't even get the seeds in yet. And how different that is from
Yes.
a flower that's already germinated and has leaves. So
Yes.
piles and layers can be really thick, and that's what we're talking about, uncovering the layers slowly and surely and moving forward so we can be with what is and see more possibilities. And that's our number 4, seeing more possibilities. I'd like to mention one thing that I've mentioned before, and that is when we're in the stress response, our cognitive function is inhibited, and it's only focused on what is threatening us. And you mentioned not feeling the stingray in last week's show because it was more important for you to get your body to safety.
Yes.
And our brain categorizes things. So if it's a matter of life and death, that's super important. And the sting of a stingray is far less important on the scale of whether you're surviving or not. So our brain is focused on ensuring our survival. And so us looking for possibility is limited and
Yes.
based on just getting to a good place for ourselves, a place where we're no longer feeling insecure or running for our lives. And
Mhm.
I'd like you to talk a little bit about what it means to see more possibilities, because our belief systems have limited us in what's possible for our lives so much. It's like we're walking around with blinders on, those horses you used to see with blinders, and all they were able to look at, which was what was in front of them,
Mhm.
was beneficial for a horse, but not so beneficial for me, a human being.
No. And a lot of us are really dug into the tracks
Mm,
of who we think we are, how we think it is, how we think we have to be, how we think they have to be, how they are. Like we're really dug in. And
yes.
so a lot of us don't have a spectrum of possibility in front of us,
Mm,
unfortunately. And we know as we get older, like the, what's that called with the black hole, the cone of what is that? The cone of
I don't recall.
the event horizon.
Oh, yes.
The event horizon gets smaller as we get older. Like I'm not going to be a world famous ballet dancer, right? Like it's not going to happen.
Did you want to be that when you were growing up?
No, but but now I can't.
Right.
Right. Highly improbable.
A lot of work ahead of you.
Right. Like so our possibilities do narrow as we make choices, and that can be really good because then I can focus, as we talked about 2 times ago. I can focus on what's important to me. But it helps, I believe, to be able to see the range and understand that although I might not want to do this and I might not do, it's possible for me. I can go back to college. I have a friend who's my age who's going for her master's, right? That's possible. I don't want to do it, but it's possible.
Right. And when you mention the possibilities narrow, that's actually by design. Our brain's function includes that narrowing. So when we're young, when we're just born, that we take in all the information, and our environment is a big indicator of how our brain continues to develop. So if you were, for example, born in the mountains, you would have a certain set of skills and a certain set of beliefs and a certain way of living, which is completely different than being born, say, perhaps in a desert, right?
Yeah.
So the environment changes our brain, and our brain actually doesn't use neural pathways that aren't beneficial and that don't benefit us, and so we just don't have them. We had them at the beginning, but as we develop, we shift according to what serves our best interest. So
we specialize.
yeah, it's not bad that our options narrow.
Right. Right. And meanwhile, there's so many available to us still. And that's the focus for this particular step 4, is can I start to be like really looking what's possible, and then I can choose. And one thing I love about this step is that it calls me to allow that much more freedom within. I'm a believer that, even if I'm in a jail cell for the rest of my life, I still have the freedom within. And if I have that freedom within, then so much is possible for me, even if I have a very small life on the outside.
Yes. You're hinting at logotherapy.
Oh, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
Do you want to say more about that?
I've forgotten the name of the gentleman who created it. Logotherapy. he was someone who went through some of the Holocaust, and it's all based in the meaning that you assign.
Was it Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor Frankl?
Yes, Frankl. You got it. Yes,
It's
yes.
awesome.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that book is amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, right. So we can be free here, and a lot of us are so free here, so can we allow that freedom, or one could say permission in our souls? Permission. And that's what a lot of the one-on-one work I do with people, it's to free this. Right here. Do I have permission to allow in here where no one's watching? Free, get free, get free. And so that I can start to choose together with the other parts of my body and life where I want to go next.
That's a real dichotomy, because in Viktor Frankl's book, he talks about not being free in the external world, yet he was free inside. And when I look at the United States of America, and our foundation is freedom on the outside, but when you read the news and when you look at social media, people are not free on the inside. That's really fascinating.
There's a lot of experience of unfreedom.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things in my work is one things I talk about all the time, and it's a spiritual concept, but it's that we have free will is one of our greatest gifts. It's like, from my perspective, it's the greatest gift after life. We have free will, but then we give it away, we lose it, we bargain it for something else. And so the idea is to be getting it back. And from there, we really, that's the only, once we have our free will with all the curtains down that we've been talking about, then we can start to actually choose. We can actually choose to walk our own way, to align with our own heart, to dance with the divine, however whatever you want to do with it. Because before that, and what's funny is I've noticed as a healer, I'll say, the two things we tend to most give away from my practical experience, we most likely give away our freedom or lose our free will for survival and for love.
Ooh,
that's what I've noticed.
Survival and love. You're making me remember a song that's common right now by a country singer. I'll think of his name in a minute. But with regard to freedom, he says, "The devil went down to Georgia, but he didn't stick around because this is God's country."
That's hilarious.
Right? And that's about freedom. Right? That's internal versus external. That's freedom without limits. That's freedom to choose. That's fascinating.
Yes. And so what I want to mention is this is all built on for 28 weeks, we've been talking about, first, we were talking about neutrality or equanimity and how to live that way. Then we were talking about staying in a relationship when it was challenging, and particularly therefore about being captain of our life, captain of our soul. And this is all practice. This is all intention. This is not like you just take a pill and then I'm free. It's something that we go to the gym for. And I just want to say that. And we have particular exercises that you and I share to get us there more easily. I just don't want to make it sound like everyone listening to this should be able to do that just like this, because
you're right. So in order to get stronger, there must be resistance, right? You lift weights, you walk up the hill. That's how you get stronger. So these practices will be met with a certain degree of resistance, because that's how we grow. That's how we develop. So if you want to learn patience, I recall choosing a day of the week. I'm going to focus on patience today. And the first thing I noticed was how many situations that I recognized I wasn't being patient in, or how often I was given the opportunity to use that patience that, otherwise I wouldn't have noticed it. So
Mhm.
building the muscle requires practice
Mhm.
and resistance, some sort of
Yeah.
repetition.
Yes, and intention.
Yes.
Yes. So I want to mention too that when we look for what's possible, it's exercising our creativity.
Mm.
So building our creativity and allowing that to thrive is so important at this level. And I wanted to mention that our wonderful producer, Rusty, has a show called Creatives Chat, which is
Yes.
really quite amazing.
Mhm.
So I just wanted to plug him because he does so much for us, and that it really helps to support our creativity. And it shows up in places like this.
And will you talk a little bit more about that? Because people talk about children and nurturing their creativity, and then you rarely hear adults talking about being creative, or they'll assign it to the category of some sort of visual art, right? So
Yes.
talk a little bit about being creative.
I think that's a really what you said about visual art. I mean, we think about, oh, I'm not creative because I don't draw and I don't
Right.
write novels and I don't paint pictures. And so, first of all, to limit it, it's like, from my perspective, the most important thing that we apply our creativity to is the life that we live.
Mm.
If I can live a creative, conscious, beautiful life of art, that is what I want. Secondarily, we apply like one of my places I put it a lot in my work, in my business and my work. The
Mm.
work I do with people is all creativity.
Mm.
How much I am moving my business forward, being an entrepreneur, when I'm doing it well, there's a lot of creativity.
Mm.
When I'm hiding from it, not so much. But I love to use my creativity. Like I'm a great cook. I love to be creative. Like that's not something you think of as an artist thing, but
Right.
I'm an amazing intuitive cook.
Mm.
I love to do that. I just want to put it into that kind of thing. Like, what's my life?
Mm.
Because I'm not a very good. I haven't put a lot of energy into being a good drawer or novelist or painter, but yeah, so it's such a big world, creativity.
That reminds me, before I started practicing heart coherence, and coherence being unified wholeness and a state of being that we've been talking about, with all of these, step one, step two, being in rest is a really big step. At any rate, before I practiced heart coherence, my gardening skills were that I knew a lot, but my application just wasn't beautiful. It was, I would pack in too many vegetables in one place, and so none of them could really thrive well. My design included, oh, there's a weed, and that's a beautiful flower. Let's leave it there. And so then the vegetables that I wanted to grow, were limited in their ability to grow. So there was a lot of discernment that was missing, and it didn't have a beautiful quality to it. And then I noticed a huge change. When I started practicing coherence, there was more order. There was, and it was intuitive. I didn't plan it. It just happened as an expression of being in coherence. So I'd like to encourage people that creativity can happen as an expression of who you're being, how you're being. Yeah.
Amen, sister. Absolutely. Yes, and it's a wonderful gift that,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just, I believe it can continue to flower. Like, I can't believe how much creativity I feel carried away, like in a stream of it. And I used to
Mm.
feel like I didn't have it at all. So
Mm.
it's really possible to allow that to grow. I also noticed that when I took my attention away from worry which is negative creating.
Oh, negative creating.
It gave me a whole lot more creativity for positive creating.
Oh, positive, right. So your negative creativity was taking up your creativity and wasn't leaving room for positive creativity.
Yes, and it was.
That's beautiful. You mind if I jump in?
Yeah, please.
I'm just realizing, so school started for my children and it's coronavirus, so we're at home. And my youngest was wanting someone to be with him during math. And he can do it on his own, but being with someone, he just needed that little support.
Yeah.
And rather than thinking of it taking away time from my day, I decided, how could I help him and foster his independence? So I began to invite him to do his math while I was cooking dinner.
Oh,
So
great.
I could be cooking and also talking with him, and we would be interacting. And yes, sometimes I go to the whiteboard and say, this is how fractions work. And I have to turn down all the burners.
That's
right?
awesome.
But it's fun for both of us. So then I get to be more creative with trying to get dinner ready while supporting my son, and he's becoming more independent. So.
Oh, that's beautiful, Dawn.
Yeah.
And it's good quality time between the two of you, which could have been, squandered.
Yes.
Because you have extra brain cells that you don't need while you're cooking most of the time. That's great.
Yeah. So it's a beautiful interplay of what's possible, and I wouldn't necessarily have thought that up if I was stressed about needing to help him with math, and then stressed and worried about when am I going to have dinner ready. But because I was in rest and because I was leaving myself open to options and looking at the truth, looking for really investigating with curiosity. So how is this going to work, with the expectation that there was a solution?
Awesome. Yeah, so to conclude about the positive, what I'm calling positive and negative creating, so one thing of negative creating is to create worry, is to create 1,000 horrific possibilities that I'm trying to live in, but scares my body, freaks my body out.
Right.
And so, talk about how to put yourself into sympathetic, right? So it grinds, it wastes all that energy and hurts the body, and it takes creativity to do that. If I drop all that, there's more energy and more creativity to do something delicious with it.
That's beautiful. With that, let's take a short break.
Let's give a shout out to our sponsors. Thank you, We Are Historically, for your conscious brand apparel. Hooray!
Welcome back to the Live by Heart Today show. I'm so glad you've joined us today, and we're continuing our conversation about worry and creativity, negative creativity, positive creativity, and it has to do with the outcome and the results that we get. So like Wendy has mentioned in past shows, when you put in bad information, let's say into a computer program, you get out bad information. When you put in negative creativity, the output has a more negative result. So when we shift our beingness, when we shift in the way in which we approach situations to be a little more positive, less worry, more rest, then the outcome and the result is also positive.
Yes. And that brings us to number 5, which is consciously choosing. Right? Because we were talking about number 4, seeing what's possible.
Yes.
And now we're like, okay, so we've seen what's possible. Now we choose. So this is the part in the last show I was talking about how people who believe in positive thinking and stuff, it sometimes affects how they want to or they do perceive the world. And I want to be with what really is, so that I can have a firm foundation on to act appropriately. And I take my positive choices down here to the choosing part.
Mm.
And
So
here's where I can choose. I can choose like something that, I can choose drama or not.
Right.
I can choose like, going around the street and falling in the hole for the 15th time or not.
Right.
I can choose to have a conversation with someone who doesn't want to hear me like they have for my whole life, or not. Or I can choose to just accept that they won't hear me or not. Like it's just a million choices, but I can choose to make my life in the world better.
So you're describing Pollyanna and how Pollyanna is actually beneficial, because everybody talks down about what it is to be a Pollyanna, and they say, oh well, don't be such a Pollyanna. But when I watched scenes from the movie, she was seeing what wasn't beneficial. She was aware of what the problems were, and she was making a different choice. And this is what you're describing.
Yes.
This is not just overlaying a positive attitude on everything, because that's not realistic.
No.
But it's seeing what's real and choosing something that's more positive, choosing a better outcome.
Yes.
And
consciously.
In that, there's more freedom. Will you talk about the freedom too, that our choice is what makes us free?
Yeah. I mean, before I was talking about it, about how if I were in prison, what can I choose? Can I choose? Because there's a lot of people that don't understand that we choose our habitual emotional experience. We choose our habitual thoughts. They go round and round and round. It feels to most people like that's all just happening to me. These emotions that I'm always having are always happening to me. These thoughts I'm always having are always happening to me. That is not necessary. Just that is a habit.
That's beautifully said, because we don't feel that that's a habit. We feel that that's a foregone conclusion, that this is just the way it is.
Mm-hmm. So I can start to choose to interrupt, as like that's what this whole conversation the last 2 times is about. I can interrupt the defaults, and I can interrupt the reactions and take a breath. And I can grow that muscle, but take a breath and go through these steps. And yeah, at first I won't be able to do all these steps, and it's okay, but I can continue to go to the gym, build this muscle. It's like the people who go before ski season. I need to strengthen these muscles. I need to make sure I'm flexible in this way, because I'm about to go skiing and I need all this. And I'm not 12 anymore. So that we can make these choices to go to the gym, and we can make these choices to be with ourselves and be with what is, etc., on purpose. And everything changes.
Yes, everything changes. And just to be clear, your comment about going to the gym, that's an interruption. That's a type of interruption which has a positive outcome. In fact, if you recall, in one of our prior shows with Susan Dumet, she talked about interrupting and using our voice to interrupt the cacophony that's either within or without. So interruptions are really important.
I didn't say in that time, because there was so much going on, but I sing a lot to change vibration, and every now and then I shouldn't say vibration, to change the energy. It's not good either. The emotions. I'm not always conscious of it, but I habitually use it. Bring lightness and fun and play to what might be, like you walk in and someone's having a disturbance.
Right.
Like, can we get ourselves out of that yuck into play?
You use singing to change the dial.
I do. Michael tells me all the time that I do it.
Hmm.
Because he's noticed, because he lives in it.
Right,
Like,
right.
thank
There's
you.
she singing again.
Yes.
So, should we, with regard to consciously choosing, should we take a minute and talk about the chains that hold us, the chains that prevent us from choosing or being aware of our choices?
Sure. I mean, I think we've said quite a lot about it. I'd love to hear some of your experience and insight.
Yeah, when I'm living my life and without recognizing, I mentioned doing house chores was a real chore, right? Housework was not fun for me for a long time. And that was an internal chain triggered by an external situation. So seeing a pair of underwear in the middle of the floor in the middle of the day was just shocking, Oh, why are we living like this? How is this possible? And keeping in mind too that I live with two bachelors. So
Or young bachelors.
yes, to a certain extent, expecting underwear on the floor is common. And so I remember the summer where I was walking by the underwear again, and my brain was saying all of these things about the underwear on the floor. Whoa, whoa, whoa. And then I thought to interrupt it. What's the best interruption right now? Because I don't like this feeling of frustration and discouragement. And I thought, oh, I could choose to pick the underwear up, and then I'm not walking by it. And that was so liberating.
Yes.
It sounds ridiculous, but it's as simple as, if I want the underwear off the floor and I've asked and it didn't happen, and I ask again and it didn't happen, and I ask again and it didn't happen, that's what nagging is.
Yes.
When you keep asking and you don't get the result, right? And so
Right.
sometimes I'll tell my kids, I wouldn't nag if you just do it. Right? But I realized in that moment, wait a minute, I can control my response. I can choose to either ignore the underwear and not be so
Yes.
upset about it, or I can just pick it up. And I chose to pick it up. And right then, oh, so much freedom. I released the chains internally. But
Wonderful.
I wasn't aware of those internal chains without the external trigger.
Yes. Yes. That's great, Dawn. It's great. And it reminds me of, I'm sure I've talked about, because it's the theme of my year, about noticing where I'm suffering.
That's
Actually
the theme for your year?
Yeah, I started like the middle of last December, just noticing this underlying suffering that I hadn't been noticing. It's just like the water I was swimming in. And then it was quite a big thing back last December. But I realized that I was suffering, and I was like, that's enough of that. And I was like, okay, now that I can see it, I can let it go. And then I let it go. I stopped suffering, and then the thing shifted like really fast. And I was like, this is magical. I'm going to do that this year. And I just keep watching for it. And I'm saying, Michael, tell me, because he knows better than I am sometimes if I'm suffering. It's just like the world we live in. I'm putting up with is one of my bad habits. So, but I keep noticing where I'm suffering, and then being just like, oh, where am I hooked? What is
Oh,
there to die to?
that's beautiful.
And it's become really habitual. It's so useful. I just keep getting happier.
That is incredible. And you're describing the Four Noble Truths. And when I first learned about it, it was eighth grade, and we were learning about world religions. And the teacher said, I can sum up Buddhism in one sentence, which is, everyone suffers. And I was just like, what, that's it? And it didn't make sense. But the Four Noble Truths is that suffering exists. And number 2 is there's a cause of suffering. And number 3, you can change it.
That's the important.
And, that seems so basic, but it's so true. And last December, you recognized it. Wait a minute, I'm suffering. And this is my suffering. And I get to not suffer.
Yes, if I choose.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Such good news. It's such good news.
Mm-hmm.
And that there's a pathway to make those changes.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful.
Yes.
And your pathway is yours.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings us to the 6th thing.
The 6th thing, which we should
Action.
leave for the next show.
Oh, I was thinking we could quick do action and then
Okay.
and then resolution could be a really good one for the next one.
Perfect. We got to do
Okay.
action fast.
So y'all, resolution is next time. So please come. This time, taking action, and in Buddhist terms, right action. And how exciting! So instead of reacting,
Yes.
we can. Oh, this is happening. Let me come from rest. Let me investigate. Let me be with what is. Let me look for what's possible. Let me consciously choose. And then I can take action.
Yes. And I love that the conscious choosing allows us to look across every choice and make the decision for our best and highest good. And not just my best and highest good, but for your best and highest good too. So when we have all of these together, when we start from a place of rest, when we're investigating and using all our senses, when we're being with what is and looking for what's possible through creativity, then consciously choosing our action is for the best for everyone.
Mm-hmm. Amen, sister.
That's proactive. That's being proactive.
It's totally
at its
being proactive.
finest.
Yes.
How wonderful.
And sometimes that will look like being sweet as pie. And sometimes it'll look like kicking butt. And it's like whatever.
Right. Sometimes you got to find out who's driving your RV.
That's right. Go up there and have a conversation.
That's right. That's beautiful.
Awesome. Good. Well, I hope that this is useful for people. These times are challenging, and I hope that what we've been sharing for a long time and what we shared today and last time really help. And next time we'll do number 7, the final of our 7 steps to conscious. Conscious choosing.
Yes.
Which is resolution.
Choosing. Yes. Thank you, Wendy. And thank you to everyone who's watching with us today. We want to hear from you. If our conversation spoke to you, please tell us what's on your heart by leaving a comment below. And for more information on how you can live by heart, please go to livebyhearttoday.com. Like and follow this page and turn on notifications so that you are aware of when we're airing, which is every Thursday at 4:44 Pacific time. From our heart to your heart. We're creating a better tomorrow because we live by heart today.
And that concludes this portion of
Live by Heart Today!
Thank you for watching. View more episodes on our YouTube channel. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's give a shout out to our sponsor. Thank you, We Are Storically, for making this show possible.